So thank you.
Sure.
So Hannah, welcome to the Office of Undergraduate Research Information session. This is one of the multiple sessions that we have done during the course of this academic year to give an opportunity to students to get to know different opportunities that are available for them out there, whether it's about external resources, external funding opportunities and awards and scholarships, or basically research opportunities that are available in and out of campus. We have tried our best through these information sessions to familiarize the students with these opportunities. So on that note, Hannah, I'm going to turn the platform to you. I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little bit about your experience with research here on the campus of UMass Dartmouth, and also the status of your research experience now that you have graduated from UMass Dartmouth and you're onto other and more serious projects. So please tell us a little bit about your experience.
Sure. Hello, I'm Hannah Gadbois. I graduated from UMass Dartmouth in 2016 with my bachelor's in art history. And I am now in a PhD program at the University of Illinois, still studying art history. Um, so when I was thinking about my experience with research at UMass Dartmouth, I thought basically of three main things. And one is that I was encouraged to do sort of really exploratory creative research. I was allowed to write about whatever I wanted, and allowed to explore various paths in a way that was very helpful. The second is that professors there were, very encouraging in showing me paths that I should go down, making sure that my work was spotlighted, and also that you know pushed my abilities where I could grow, and also I was allowed to do a variety of sort of research projects that have continued to benefit me. So one of the things Professor Karimi actually helped me find the RISD Museum internship that I did, which was a great opportunity to work directly in a museum archive, and to do some writing for them. We also went directly to a variety of local archives, so we were doing work, sort of on the ground, and sort of showcase the importance of doing work sort of directly with objects. Um, I was also a recipient of the Office of Undergraduate Research grant, which allowed me to do some self-directed research and then later present at the UMass Amherst conference. And now I'm still using a lot of those skills. Unfortunately, my research area is in the Soviet Union, so I can't do a lot of direct archive work right now. But I am still, presenting at various things, applying for various grants. So it's all been training that is well used today.
Wonderful. Hannah, I did not know that you have started a new research trajectory on the Soviet Union. So that's wonderful. But and I'm terribly sorry that the situation in the region is very unstable right now, which means that you have a hard time to go to the Soviet Union or other areas that were part of the Soviet Union. Um, are there any alternatives to your research while you can't directly access Russia?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to be going to Kyrgyzstan this summer, to do some more like immersion language studies to progress my research later. And that's through Arizona State University. They offer some pretty generous scholarships that I highly recommend.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very good. Thank you very much, Hannah. Hannah, I may return to you for more questions, but let me take this opportunity to turn the platform to George. George, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course, of course. Professor Hoskin is probably like wondering who's that, who is that? I know last time he saw me, I barely had any beard, and now I have a full face. Yeah, yeah. My name is George. Um, I saw Professor Hoskin saying something, but you were on mute, so I couldn't hear you if you said anything there. But yeah, George, I graduated back in 2014 the bachelor's in math, and then from there, I did my master's in artificial intelligence at Northwestern University, and I've been in Raytheon. Well, it was Pratt, right, which is part of UTC, and then UTC and Raytheon merged. So now I'm part of Raytheon Technologies. I've been here since 2016. First, I went to the Hartford Insurance, and then moved over here. But research was, I think, started back in 2012. That was when it all started. I actually found out about it. It was kind of, I was working at Language Lab, and I was going to say a coworker, a student, a friend said, "Hey, George, you do math, right?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "Do you know that you guys actually get paid to take a class?" I said, "I did not know that. I could use some money right now." So that's when I learned about it, and it's been fun ever since. So I say I still do research every day.
Wonderful, wonderful. So George, you worked with Adam when you were here at UMass Dartmouth, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I have a long list of folks that I bugged quite often. Unfortunately, it was towards the end. It was when I woke up. I know at first I was playing around and playing soccer and stuff, but towards the end was when I was like, "Oh, these professors actually want to teach me something. I should go to their office more often." But but better late than never. So I still use a lot of the tips that they gave me today.
Wonderful. And Adam, thank you for being with us today. It means a lot to both George and myself. So on this note, I'm going to turn the platform to Zach. Zach, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no problem. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulties. Segal, I'm at Segal's house working with her right now, and she's like, "Go get your meeting," and it took me a while to get on the link. But so yes, I'm Zach Grant. I switched into I joined the math department of my second semester freshman year. That was in 2009. That semester was right at the time the math department got the CSUMS grant, a big NSF grant to train undergraduate math students in computational science. And basically, Professor Kim pulled me out of class at the end of class one day and said, "Hey, can you come by the department tomorrow? I have some people you might want to meet. We're starting a new program." And that's the class George was talking about. The CSUM is paid for us. So I thought I was in trouble. Find out that's where I got introduced to Segal many, many years ago. So 12 years ago, I've been working with her now. I mean, it was really it was that summer, freshman year. After freshman year, I joined did the summer program. For 20 hours a week, they paid us $300 a week. And I was like, "Oh, minimum wage is $8 an hour. Like, where's I get paid 15, 20 an hour? This was amazing." And I got to like learn some stuff. I never know what I want to do with my life yet. I was good at math. From there, Segal had extra funding to take me on one of her Air Force grants. So I was working with her on the AFOSR projects since the fall of sophomore year. When I finished my undergrad in the fall of 2012, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life yet. So Segal would tell me to go apply for all these different PhD programs, but I'm sure you all heard of this thing called imposter syndrome, where you don't think you're good enough or as good as the people around you. And I should have just took their word for it and said, "Hey, they actually know the field," but I didn't. And I think I got really lucky though, so I ended up staying at UMass for my PhD. Segal was like, "Well, if you want to stay here, you can do much better, but you can stay here. We have a new program, and I can fund you for 5 years." From there, I realized how lucky I was with the professors at UMass, especially our math department. I mean, geez, Adam can vouch for them. So Segal's been like my mentor. We talk every day for now 12 years, and I'm at her house. I'm literally in her kid's bedroom right now, working out of an office. I'm visiting for the week. But yeah, so after I did my undergrad, stayed for a PhD in computational science. Through there, got to publish like 5 or 6 papers as a student. Segal, one of my papers, she nominated me for an award at SciAm, as our a national organization, and I got a best student paper prize from there. That kind of helped launch my career and got my more credibility out there. So when I was applying for jobs after my PhD, I got offered the Householder Fellowship at Oak Ridge National Lab, which is one of their distinguished staff scientist positions. or I got 3 years to do kind of whatever I wanted for research, as long as. And I just finished that, and right now I'm working at Michigan State, and we're forced to go as a what do you call it? Almost like a consultant, supplemental researcher or something like that. But basically, we're running some big grants right now, collaboration with Michigan State and UMass and some others for a big MURI right now. So it's going pretty good. Research.
Excellent. So,
Yeah,
excellent. Thank you so much for these introductions. So what I hear from all three of you is that research at UMass Dartmouth prepared you for your field. Basically, coursework was not enough at all, that you had to actually get out of your comfort zone. And in addition to your coursework, you had to look for other resources, whether it was faculty members or organizations that could fund your research, or entities on campus that could introduce you to new ideas and new ways of understanding more about your field. So I'm going to turn the platform again now to Hannah. Hannah, so can you tell us a little bit about more more about like when you actually started doing research at UMass Dartmouth, and if you, like George, think that had you started earlier, you could be better off overall, or perhaps junior year is good enough. Tell us a little bit about the timing of that.
Yeah, I think it was my junior year as well, which also ended up being my last year. I finished in 3 years. So it was a little bit like I just started and then I had to get out there. But I feel like I actually had a lot of opportunities to do research in that last year. As I was saying, I was the recipient, thanks to your direction, from the Office of Undergraduate Research grant, where I was studying the post-industrial landscape in New England. And so I got to do some sort of direct research at institutions, museums in New England through that. And then I also think, like, even before then, even before I was doing research outside of my coursework, even doing research for my courses, I feel like even then the research then was significant, because I was, sort of allowed and encouraged to do projects that were interesting to me, that, I ended up getting really deep into it. And it didn't just have to be something surface level, just finding, basic information.
Excellent. And Hannah, unlike in the sciences, I mean, the sciences may require this too, but in the humanities, definitely, you have to actually get out. You have to go to the archives, to the museums, to other places. And now you're on your way to Kurdistan, which is a very exotic place. So tell us a little bit about, going outside the borders of the classroom and the campus. How did that impact your views, both in terms of your research as well as your life in general?
Yeah, I feel like for most of the time, at least for art history, I end up, most books by now are digitalized. I can find a lot of things online. But usually when I'm trying to like really look at the work itself is when I have to go to an archive, particularly because I work with a lot of photo books, and a lot of them only like singular pages have been digitized. And so if the case is where I'd want to see the whole thing, which obviously I would have to do if I'm going to write substantially about it, then I have to go to where it lives. And um, I feel like that's sort of actually like a very lovely experience. I would think, it's a pain, you have to go all the way to this place, but you actually get there and you get to like really, hold the work. You can like sort of see the passage of time like on the surface of it. And you're reminded of sort of like exactly what its place is in history. I feel like it like grounds it. And so it always is actually very exciting, and it sort of reminds me why I do this when I get to see it in person.
Wonderful. So you're talking about the joy of research, which is actually pure joy, and I completely agree with you, Hannah,
And
on that.
I was just going to say, my sisters, especially my middle sister, is fascinated with history when she was young, and she can remember when the first time she visited England, and it's the first time she said, "I finally seen something that's really old." And the idea that she's actually walked on something that was Roman was, I mean, because she'd up to then she'd lived in only in the United States. And the same thing for my other sister when she went to Italy, especially to see something that we always, in the United States, we think of everything as being old, but most things in the United States compared to Europe are relatively new. You know? And so
That's true. That's true. So in that sense, travel really opens your eyes
Yeah.
to the world and its history and all that it has to offer.
yeah.
I mean,
And
that was one of the things that lured, that was a huge selling point when we were to pursue academia and research in general. Part of it, the funding they had for us was to actually have us go to conferences, interact with people, experts in the field, give presentations to all the different levels of audience, from undergrads to full professors and so on. But also at these conferences, you're networking, you're meeting people from all over who can share your ideas and come from all different backgrounds. Now, I didn't go on fly on a plane until I was 19. I can say about 95% of my travel is usually from my math research. And I was lucky enough to go to Beijing, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Greece, London, Spain, Brazil, all over the country too. But I got exposed to so many different cultures because math is universal. It's not the same everywhere. But there's different parts where different learning, different styles of researchers, and all of that really you really notice a big difference. And my family always thinks of me who are you? Where'd you come from? The youngest out of 5, but we didn't come from much. So when I'm oh yeah, when I went to Beijing for this, I got to meet these people, and this guy was a Nobel Prize winning physicist that I got to have lunch with because research got us to interact with them. And I was how? And I was I started doing research. I said yes to opportunities. And once you start saying yes to one thing, everything just starts opening. And I mean, there's reviews in the summer. We get to meet the best students at other country, all across the country for the summer. But yeah, CSUM's changed my life, I could say. I mean, that was my first experience in research. And that was, I mean, look, I'm a PhD mathematician researcher who was working at one of the best, where they have the fastest computer in the world. I get to work with some smartest people, and I have fun doing it. And I never thought I was smart enough to do any of this. I never saw this. I mean, I started as an accounting major because that's what my guidance counselor told me to do with a good math background. I don't know. But then, it was really that the hands-on approach that at least I got with the math department is they said, hey, if you really want people to understand the topic, you can't just and really want to engage them. You got to teach them more than just how to study for this and look at this strategy and then take a test on it. It's really about the more critical thinking that you get out of research, where you're okay, you can't just give someone how they can look up the answer to. But it's really not that hard to come up with research topics that are geared towards a certain level of achievement. I had an intern last summer. I gave her a project that I geared, but it was still relevant research. When I looked at all the other interns later that summer, found out they all got toy problems that had no chance to turn into anything. Well, mine's just went from barely considering a master's degree, where she just got her NSF postdoctoral. She just got an NSF fellowship, is accepted her PhD position at Brown starting next fall. And she's I never saw research until this show. I showed her, we took her in her ring, and I kind of would treat her how Segal taught me when I was she's I never saw this happening. And I'm you got one of the best fellowships at one of the best institutions in the world. Go enjoy, because you're smart and you're gifted. You just had to realize that to be presented.
Excellent.
Yeah,
so what I hear from you, Zach, is that research has changed your life in multiple ways. Basically, it has taken you to all over the world, even though you are studying mathematics, which is like a universal language all over the world. But you're telling us that different countries have different approaches, different ways of looking at things. And so that has been very informative for you. The other thing that I hear from you, Zach, is just a pure joy of research, that research will lead you to a career that is not repetitive. Like every day you don't have to do the same task for the rest of your life, but that you have an opportunity to grow as a person. That's wonderful, Zach. So on this note, I'm going to turn the platform to George to talk to us a little bit about the other side of the research world, which is the world of the professional firms that deal with research. Talk to us, George, a little bit about Pratt and Whitney, the firm in which you work with, and tell us how research is implemented into the day-to-day activities of you in that firm.
Yeah, so I'll probably maybe just give a brief background for those that don't know what we do at Pratt, right? So Pratt is one of the leading manufacturing of jet engines, right? So if you're familiar with F-35 and all of those fighter jets, right? We make those engines, and then also we have engines flying on airlines all over the place, right? So we compete with GE, Rolls-Royce, and all those companies. Research at Pratt. So I've been very fortunate to sit in a data science team that sits at the enterprise level. So I don't just work for one department. So I'm a lead data scientist. So I'm also the product owner for the team. What that means is someone comes to the team with a problem, and then they just say, for example, a recent project that I've been working on is how do we reduce turnaround time of repairs at each individual shops, right? So we have shops around the world, and their parts can take up to a month, over a month to get repaired, and jet engines have hundreds of parts, if not probably thousands. So how do we make sure that when an engine comes in, how do we make sure it gets out on time, right? How do we promise the customers that it's going to get out on time? So that's a VP might come to our team and they say, I have this problem, and then I'm supposed to take that, break that into pieces, and then convert that. And one thing that actually Siddhartha, who most of us you probably know, I asked him some time ago, a piece. So this thing of data science is, if you only try to stick with Python and only do Python, at least within my team, right? You would only be able to go so far, right? Because when in the business world, what gets you to the next step is not just going in front of them and then just say, hey, I just put together this XGBoost algorithm, and this is the model accuracy. Like they'll just look at you like, what are you talking about, right? So you have to kind of put that in a nice visual. So communicating your findings is key. And I remember I was still playing around with R, trying to put things in Shiny apps and stuff like that, trying to convey the message. And Siddhartha has been for the longest time telling me, hey, look into Django, look into Python. It's time to get deeper into Python. I know Professor Hoskin had kind of taught me my first class in Python, and I kind of dismissed it a little bit because I didn't really understand how powerful it was, right? I understood that, but I liked R more because it was easier at the time, at least for me, right? But then as soon as, I started getting into Django, and then I got into front end, and now we don't just do research in the sense of just, hey, here's a report or here's a table of solutions. We have to put that emphasis in that communication. It has to be something that the user, it has to be actionable, right? So we take big problems, break that down into small chunks, and then go deeper. We were talking about traveling. So we don't travel outside, but we have to sit with the customers who actually are turning the knobs and doing the actual work. So it's kind of like traveling and finding out from the experts, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful for what you do, George. It's very, very important, because sometimes we tend to forget that everything that we take for granted, including, for example, this mouse that I'm holding in my hand, somebody has had to do intensive research in order to create this object that sits so well with your hand and is so functional. And most of this work is not done in the university context. but is done in the industry. And that's why, research in the industry is also a very, very important thing that students can take into consideration as their future career. In other words, George, you don't have to end up in academia if you go on a research track. That a lot of industries and companies also do research, right?
Yeah, and if I may add one thing, just to tie CSUM's work direct to how I got my first job, right? So I remember I don't know who might remember Keith. So Keith Resendiz was his name. So my first class, my first CSUM class, I was lost. Right, I'm not going to say that I knew what was going on. I remember sitting there. I forgot the class name, but it was in that corner with all the back then it was fancy Macs all over the place. And I remember sitting there. I was lost, right? And the question that I picked to look into was I think diabetes. How do we I think we were sort of like fitting a curve to some diabetes data there. And I remember when I applied for, well, I didn't apply, so through LinkedIn, a recruiter reached out to me, and I remember I had put all my research projects in my resume as experience, and that was all that we talked about on interviews, right? They weren't quizzing me because I had no other internship experience. But I could talk about that work, and it was something that was very relatable, and it was for the Hartford, the insurance company, and I can honestly say that thanks to CSUMS, I had something exciting to talk about, right? And that actually got me, gave me that edge over the other applicants. So a direct tie, right, from my work at CSUMS. So. Yeah, and that's why to this day, when you guys call, I'll come.
Wonderful. That's great, George. Thank you. Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about opportunities in the future for you in the job market? Are you looking for jobs in academia, or are there routes for you in the museum world or nonprofit organizations or other places that you can explore?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm definitely still leaning towards academia, like to be a professor, because I like the option to continue sort of heavy research while I'm working. But I've also been thinking about academic publishing, and I actually got a grant last year to work with the Illinois University Press and to see the way that their organization is structured. And that was actually a wonderful experience to see, like, at all levels how it functions. And I think something wonderful about academic presses is that you get to continue to engage with research while working with texts. So I've been considering that as well.
Excellent. So basically all kinds of opportunities in the publishing world, from editorial jobs to writing yourself as an author. These are all opportunities that are available for you in the humanities fields. I know that you're in art history, but equally people who study history or English literature, they are in the same category with you, Hannah. And so they can also explore these opportunities in those fields.
Can I just real quick? Because I think it's one thing we see universal across all research is the one thing that research gives you, trains you that you don't realize that you don't get in the classrooms. It teaches you to think critically and allows you to say it's okay to feel dumb, because that's part of what research is willing to come up with your own ideas and branch out and then reanalyze and rethink. You only get that ability by doing it more and more and getting engaged and learning to think like that in a very critical way at the beginning of your real academic career is really college. Like, you just learn basic life skills in up to high school, really. College, where you get the freedom to think a little more intellectually. And that really is what I see the difference between the students, the interns and the grad students that are coming from research experience to undergrads versus those who didn't, is the ones that have the experience as undergrad, when they get into the realm of research, they're already ready to come up with the right types of questions and where to think and where to look and let's investigate this, where the other ones need to be still told what to do. they're just not told what to do. If you only have your experience in education is always coming from a lecture scenario, you're not really challenged the same way. So then when in real life, you're not even someone to say, now go do this. They're going to say, hey, here's our problem. How do we think about it? And if you never engage that part of your brain, it's a lot harder to learn later. It's not impossible, but take the time now to get the leg up, because that's what I noticed between the interns and the early PhD students who thrive and who have a little more issue reassessing. I can think that one thing I think that they train us well in the PhD program at UMass Dartmouth is they get you engaged in research in day one of your grad school, where a lot of other universities I know people don't start till third year. And I think that's like baffling to me. If being a graduate researcher, to be a researcher, you need to do research. Why do you take 2 years to find out if that's something that you're good at doing? It doesn't make sense. And in fact, I think it should be really happening at almost the sophomore year level, so they can help better understand all the different avenues they can do with their career. I mean, the lab is basically a mix of industry and academia. Industry meaning that we get people come up to us from the lab and say, hey, I have this nuclear reactor, we need to do simulations because the codes we're using aren't working right now, or they're not doing it efficient enough. What can you do? So you get to delve into the topic, but you have a problem in mind, but then you go publish more theoretical results about it as well. I just realized I'm much more of an academic because I know what I want to study. But I like the freedom too. Right now I get to spend about half my time doing my research. Then I'm helping 2 different nonprofits in the Knoxville area raise some money. And then I'm doing some side consulting as well. So that freedom I really like, because it's fun to get paid to think and come up with a new idea, just you make up on the fly. And then after a little more effort, you realize, hey, I was right the whole time. And once you get hooked, once you get that once, you get addicted to it. And you just keep wanting to say, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? The world's my,
And what better thing to be addicted to than research,
learning,
right? Because it's always something that is in progress. It helps you grow as a person, and it makes you feel young, right? Because you're always growing as a person. It's not about doing this repetitive task every day. Not to say that those kinds of tasks are not respectable or needed in the society, but research opens up the opportunity for you to grow as a person, to always be a student, to learn new things, and that's the most fascinating human experience. Now, I want to switch gear now and ask you a question. Again, thank you, Zach. Going back to Hannah, retrospectively, now that you think about your experience here at UMass Dartmouth, do you think we could do better as your professors, as administrators, as people who are running this university? We could do a little bit better to introduce you to research early on as you entered the university at freshman level? Or do you think that freshman level would be perhaps a little bit too early, too soon to be introduced to the serious world of research? Hannah, starting from you, I'm going to turn the platform to all 3 of you.
Well, I think it's not like research wasn't present from day one for me because, as I said before, we were encouraged to work on whatever project we wanted for our final papers. And so that always, requires a level of research. And then if it's something you're excited about, then your research is going to go deeper. And I remember classes going to, various archives, various historical institutes. So already sort of modeling what research on our own would look like. And I just feel like I'm a little sick today, but I came anyway because the professors here were just so supportive, and I haven't had an experience like that at any other institution since, where professors were constantly looking out for research opportunities, forwarding them to me, trying to prepare me for things. And so I really don't think that I couldn't have asked for anything to be done differently.
Oh, thank you very much, Hannah. And again, I appreciated that despite you not feeling well today, you joined us. I am so, so grateful. And it was truly a pleasure to have a student like you. We've had a lot of outstanding students like you, and it's always, always a pleasure to work with students like yourself. George, I'm going to turn the platform to you. Again, the question is, could we do a little bit better in order to enrich your research experience here at UMass Dartmouth?
I mean, I think there's always room for improvement. But the way that I see it is that it's, I think, introducing it or maybe making people more aware of it. I know that for me, I kind of I was the type of student. So back home in Cape Verde, I was, I always had good grades, right? And I kind of coasted through school there. And then when I came here, English was a little, tough for me. And I had to kind of, I thought I could coast as well, but no, that was not the case. And then when I got to college, it got a little tougher. And I just wasn't the type of person who was mingling a lot with the other students. I would say maybe if in classrooms it was voiced more, just to say that we do have opportunities. Again, I'm speaking from back in 2014, 2012.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure how it changes, how it has changed since then. But for me, it's really just letting students know that that's an opportunity that's there. And I also know that some folks might not be aware of where it leads them. I know for me, when I heard the word research, it was just sort of like only super smart kids would have access to that, right? Folks who could just dream and code and stuff. So that was kind of the idea that I had. But then I'm glad I took the chance and went in, because what I really learned from all the research and actually engaging the professors in a more of a mentorship way than just a lecturer was really that, hey, it's really the questions that you ask. To this day, that's a skill it's rare to find folks that can ask the right questions, that can probe on the right things. And I'll never forget, I remember once Professor Kim was just writing some proofs on the board, and then I looked to my brother, and we were just lost. And I told Professor Kim, I'm not sure if it was me or somebody else who asked that question, but her response stuck with me to this day. And she gave an answer saying, math, sometimes you just got to stare at it. You just got to read it over and over again. And sometimes when I get a problem, that's something that I go back to, right? So I think something that should definitely keep going is having professors in those sessions where students are doing research, and then just have that sort of mentor relationship. And I think this is a really good piece, right? If students would know, hey, I can go to industry and be successful because I've learned these tricks while I was just, the student who had no clue what to do about research. I was just, staring at trying to fit a Gaussian distribution, to a diabetes data set or something along those lines. Something that now I look back on, I was like, wow, that was an interesting start, but it kind of got that spark going to the point that now, I use a lot of those little things that at the time didn't seem like much, but though they were like golden nuggets that I can say something from all the professors that I've interacted with, because it really stuck out to me. So
excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much, George, for sharing that with us. And Zach, so what do you think? Could we have done better?
I think I'm done better in a way. Could I have ended up anywhere better if I was at an institution? No, I think I got lucky and I got paired with the right people at the right time who saw the potential in me. And just, I never saw it until recently. I never saw how they looked at me, how they treated me until recently. And I'll tell you my overall issue with my pet peeve, if I could fix the system, is I don't know when it changed, but a lot of secondary higher education institutions went from more of a place of training to think critically and learn more about yourself and the world and the cultures, and then turned into a business model of, hey, you come to this school for this program, you can make this much money at this job after. And while some majors and some paths are a vocational, it's a degree required vocational path and training, a lot of our fields aren't like that. Math, art history, humanities, even engineering, where it's not just about you get this degree to then go do this one job. That's not a bad thing, but again, it's not for everyone. And I think, this as much as we try to offer internships and encourage internships for certain majors and fields, I think we should also offer, cross more seminars, but like weekend workshops where you're bringing students from different majors and giving them one problem to work on and think critically, where you can actually bring them all together. I've realized when I did math modeling and you have a combination of engineers, like I did a math modeling camp, like workshop, and I'm working with, expert physicists, then the electrical engineers and mathematicians, and we all look at the problem differently, but we all learn from each other too. And that's where I really got a lot of my insight. I'm like, oh, this is how an engineer thinks about it versus how I think versus them. So getting them exposed to research and interdisciplinary from early on, like one unified grand problem would be really impactful. But finding ways to, because I was lucky that I could be the one of the few that got really this special attention. If you can imagine, if every single one who had that could be like a diamond in the rough, be polished, be a shiny campus. The infrastructure wasn't there yet, but it's getting better. I mean, when I was a freshman, Office of Undergraduate Research didn't exist. When it did start existing, it sounded like it really existed in name only and was given minimal money to actually offer real experiences for students. And I think if you want to talk to and we see how much it changes people's lives. In the CSUMS program, the people that I had in it, a lot of us just kind of got pulled into it. If you look at the first wave of PhD students out of our program, there was at least 5 who have started from the CSUMS program, who then got a PhD at UMass Dartmouth and now ended up at the top institutions. I worked at Oak Ridge National Lab. Zhao was at Virginia Tech. We had Leah, who was from Fairhaven, started as a psychology and philosophy, then started doing math. She got pulled into the research. Next thing you know, now she's a PhD researcher at MIT Lincoln Labs. It's the research allows you to find the students who are truly amazing and get them engaged to show them their full potential. But it also takes the people who it taps into a part of the brain that isn't really tapped into until you get to a research type of environment, because it really gets you challenge your thinking and let them feel stupid. And then when the faculty member says, hey, I don't know the answer, let's learn on this together, come with me, is a much more encouraging way to go about it.
Excellent.
So if we could do more, find ways to cut the teaching
load. Absolutely.
So
and I really
more hands-on engagement.
I really appreciate, Zach, your suggestion about creating workshops where we can bring people from different disciplines to think about similar problems or even the same problem. That's a very, very clever idea, and I appreciate that. We're getting close to the end of the hour, and before we close this meeting, I want to turn the platform to Adam. Adam, as a professor who has worked at UMass Dartmouth for many, many years, and a lot of students have benefited from your knowledge and expertise, do you have any final words for us about research and about other issues?
Well, I mean, I can say my undergraduate and graduation was much different than basically I actually went to a junior college to start off with. And actually, here's the thing I've told my students, including I think I even told once when Zach was in one of my classes, I was somebody who was never supposed to go to college according to my high school counselor. Why? Because I believe why. It's because I came from a single parent family. And because of where in the town, I grew up in Berkeley, California, which is a wealthy town. And some people think very liberal, but it also matters whether or not who your parents are. And so I was just told by a guidance counselor that you probably should go become a technician, basically. And nothing, again, wrong with it, because I was thinking about doing that. But then I went to junior college. I had a very strong math professor there. Then I transferred to UC Berkeley. And basically, in those days, they didn't have undergraduate research, but I had lots of problems of my own I was interested in trying to solve. And I could get access to a computer. So I tried to solve some of them. A lot of them had to do with combinatorial type problems. So what I think is one of the real difficult issues, because I'm teaching a class right now, for example, differential equations, is that we're teaching extreme students from extreme backgrounds. I have some students who really don't want to know anything more than just how can I survive this course. And then in the same class, I have students who are, you know, who really want to know more than just whatever I've said. But because of the kind of school this is, we have both students in the same classroom. And in the math department, we don't have separate classes for really strong students and other classes for everybody else, you know. And so, you know, so I think that I don't know what to do about it, but possibly doing more workshops or doing some way for having students who can math majors and people from other departments, physics, anything, and even things that you might not think, because like one of our faculty members, Alpha Giordano, runs a workshop where people actually work on projects that people bring from industry in, and also other faculty on campus to work on. So recently I've seen they brought somebody in from the coaching staff who had a baseball problem. They wanted to know how to visualize the data they had from baseball. So I think that, they had somebody from political science who wanted to had a project having to do with legislator staff. So bringing those kinds of problems into students probably is a good thing. It's certainly not like a standard kind of problem you would see in a textbook, which most people may find relatively boring, you know.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for that information. I think that you brought up a very important point about the fact that, you know, some students are very driven, very talented, like the 3 former students that we have here, and that the university should try to create opportunities for them to have some additional training in the fields that they're passionate about. And we definitely want to create those opportunities for them.
I just want to say one more thing. I also have worked with students who come from families where studying just for studying's sake is not well understood. I'm talking about first generation students.
Yeah.
And that frequently some of these students comes from families who own businesses. That is, it's a family owned business. And so if they're not working or helping out for the part of the business, the family doesn't know what's going on. Why are you spending all this time doing this thing? They might understand it if you're studying for an exam, but just studying something for the heck of it may not be.
Right.
Yeah, trying to explain what is math.
That's why the Office of Undergraduate Research is here, and there are other opportunities on this campus where we can create opportunities for people to do what they really want to do. Zach, please go ahead. I'm sorry, I have.
Sorry, no, I just want to double check. So I remember one thing I really liked that they were starting a few years ago was they were really exploring the capstone-like projects more across the disciplines than just happening in engineering. Is that still and if that is a thing, when do those start? Because if you want to find a way to include research like things or internship like things from early on, you can actually have them start their capstone like project sophomore year, and it's a 3-year build up, where some of those capstones are more internship based for a vocational like major, and some of them can be more research driven based, like a thesis, like an honors thesis. And it kind of cures, and just like Adam said, there's a wide spectrum of students in each classroom. But if you look at like the way what you're trying to get out of that class, if I'm trying to teach to a bunch of math majors who are trying to do research, I'm going to approach the class a very different way than I'm trying to teach a bunch of engineers who just need to learn the basic skills to then solve their more mechanical problems that I could never think of. My brain doesn't work that way. And I'm like, well, if we could better find a way to split the classes up by sections, where sections are getting slightly geared towards a different, what is the word, pedagogy style, where, you know, you're doing a more Socratic method for the ones who are doing research and think more open-minded, where the other ones more hands-on application driven. If you could somehow better do that, and I know there's limited resources and all that, but it's a better use of resources to group the students there than just say, oh, all students take different equations, all students take English 1, English 2. A cohort-like structure just to me seems like a better way to feed them up, is because then you learn to lean on each other better.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Zach. You've had a lot of good suggestions for us as a university, not just for students who are closer to your age, they're young researchers, but also for us who are basically responsible for teaching classes and for organizing workshops and opportunities for students. Thank you to all three of you for all of your fascinating ideas. And Hannah, I definitely personally want to know more about your wonderful research, and I'll be in touch with you offline and online to learn more about your fascinating research about Soviet Russia. But on this note, I am going to thank you again for joining us this afternoon. And this recording will be available for students who couldn't join us this afternoon for a very short period of time, maybe a month or two. And then students can benefit from all the good things that you shared with us. So on this note, thank you all. Have a great evening and have a wonderful weekend. And I wish you the very best in your research careers.
Thank you. Nice seeing you guys again.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.